What's up, everybody? This is your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, here to bring you another video with no frills, just the analysis. And today I'm going to be bringing you the Season 2, Episode 6 review of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, entitled Michael Korvac. And first, before I get into this review, let me just say, looks like my hiatus is over now, and it looks like I'll be back to making videos on a full-time basis. So obviously I'm very excited and very happy about that. And I have a slew of videos to bring you guys, because my ideas have been backlogged. So I have a whole bunch of videos that I need to get out there to you guys. So it looks like May is going to be an eventful month for this channel. Now, let me just say this with respect to this episode 6 of Avengers. It looks like the Kree versus Skrull sort of conflict is going to be a very, very interesting dilemma for Earth. And I'll explain that later on when I get to my analysis of this episode. But I'm now really starting to wonder how Earth is going to get out of this, sort of get how are they going to evade being consumed by this conflict between the Kree and the Skrull? Because it looks like that just ain't gonna happen. that just ain't gonna happen. So first, let me do a brief summary of this episode and then give you my analysis of this episode. All right, so the episode opens with a man who looks like he's inside of a ball of energy. He just appears inside of a ball of energy, and it looks like he's in Central Park, New York. So inside of Central Park in New York, and the ball like creates a crater. The ball of energy creates a crater, and then the energy just sort of dissipates, evaporates, and then there's this man inside the crater, and he looks up at some police officers, and he asks for help. And he also, asks, for Karina. Where's Karina? You need to help me. I've been abducted by aliens, all of that stuff. One thing that was very interesting about this scene, though, was that the police don't even bat an eye. It's like they don't find anything anomalous about this, nothing suspicious about this. Man just appears inside of a ball of energy, and they just take him. They say, all right, we're going to help you. And they just take him straight to the Avengers mansion. So I thought that was that was a little bit odd that, these sort of occurrences inside of the Marvel universe aren't even, that suspicious or that, extraordinary for even for police officers to witness. So it turns out that this man who was inside this ball of energy is Michael Korvac, and apparently he's been missing for 2 years. And in his flashback, we find out that he's been abducted by aliens and that they experimented on him. And so now the Avengers have to, figure out what's going on here, to try to solve this mystery and to help this guy, Michael Korvac. So Panther and Hawkeye go investigate the crater that he left in Central Park. Wasp goes to search for this girl, Karina, that Michael Korvac keeps asking for. And she eventually finds her and brings her back to the Avengers mansion. And then Iron Man and Hulk try to find out, what's wrong with this man, what type of energy signature he's giving off, all that sort of stuff. So while this is going on, Hawkeye, Panther, and Wasp eventually come back to the Avengers mansion. But just as they do, these guys show up at the Avengers mansion practically out of nowhere. And at first, it's sort of ambiguous what their role is in this story. We're not sure if they were the aliens who are after Michael Korvac, or if they have some sort of different objectives. So a huge fight ensues, and this is Avengers, action-packed. Fights are always great and awesome. Um, and but one thing though, I had my suspicions that the people who showed up to the Avengers mansion weren't the aliens who kidnapped Michael Korvac. And the reason why I believe that was because in the flashback, we see the images of the aliens who abducted Michael Korvac, and the people who show up at Avengers mansion don't look anything like those aliens who appear in Michael Korvac's flashback. And then it turns out that there's, a huge plot twist. These guys turn out to be guardians Guardians of the Galaxy. Basically, they're an intergalactic version of the Avengers. So whatever the Avengers do for Earth, the Guardians of the Galaxy do on an intergalactic scale. And then we find out that Michael Korvac was in fact a Kree test subject, and that they did some sort of experimentation on him that gave him, these incredible powers. Then it turns out that he got very, very confused, that he went insane, and that ever since then he's just been engaging in all sorts of, intergalactic mischief. He's been blowing up planets, blowing up, space stations, satellites, you name it. And so what happens is the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy have to now team up to sort of, stop Michael, to convince him that they're not the aliens who abducted him, and to try and get him to calm down so that he doesn't, continue to go haywire. But he eventually goes haywire. He doesn't believe them. He thinks that they're, the Kree, and he just, basically goes crazy. And the way that this gets resolved is that Karina, the girl that he's been searching for, basically points out to him that the only one who's acting like a monster is you, Michael. And so that basically stops him from fighting. And at this point, we just see him. Apparently, according to the Guardians of the Galaxy, he's in another plane of existence, and he's just there by himself. So now let me get into my analysis of this episode. And just to, make sure people are clear about this, I don't read any comic books. I don't read any Marvel comic books or DC comic books. So I don't know anything about this storyline or what's going to happen. So this is just my analysis and my sort of speculation. So again, like I said before, we have, another action-packed episode, and, fighting's always good. But the major subtext of this episode is the overarching plot of the Skrull versus the Kree. And there are three things I think you should focus on. The first is that the Kree are a point of connection. It looks like the Kree could be a point of connection between the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Earth via the Avengers. So there's now some sort of contact between Earth through the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy. And now wondering if the Guardians of the Galaxy will show up at some later point in the series to try and help Earth defend itself against the sort of conflict between the Kree and the Skrull. And the Kree, it looks like they already want to take over the Earth, so it looks like they would have to help Earth specifically fight off the Kree. The second thing is that I thought at first, when I first was introduced to this plot line between the Kree and the Skrull, I thought the Skrull were the ones who were interested in destroying the Earth, and that the Kree were the ones who wanted to save the Earth. But just, since last night, I've sort of marathoned the last 3 or 4 episodes of the Avengers because I haven't been keeping up. But now it seems like the Skrull and the Kree are, galactic empires built on conquest and destruction. And that now both the Skrull and the Kree, well, we already know that the Kree are villains. They're obviously the villains because, now they've already invaded Earth. They've already tried to subjugate Earth, and that didn't work. And now it looks like they're going to come back to Earth and try and, not either destroy it or subjugate it. Looks like they want to destroy it completely. So it seems like we already know now that the Kree are going to be villains throughout the rest of this plot line. But it's not clear to me what role the Skrull are going to play. And so I'm not too sure about whether the Skrull will now turn out to be, on Earth's side against the Kree, because the Skrull are trying to fight the Kree as well. Or they could turn out to be villains or just completely indifferent to Earth. So it's not really clear. We know now that the Kree are villains, but it's not clear what the narrative role of the Skrull Empire will be going forward. Although we know now that they've, impersonated Captain America. And I believe they've impersonated someone else. I can't remember. Believe it was Invisible Woman from the Fantastic Four. And also, something else seems clear to me now. And this is the sort of dilemma that I was alluding to at the beginning of this episode review. If Earth fights the Kree, then it doesn't look like Earth can win. I mean, the Kree are an intergalactic space empire. They have, technology that appears to be orders of magnitude more advanced than our own. All we have is, I believe, sword or something. We have shield, but it doesn't look like there'll be much help against the Kree, who can apparently mobilize thousands of spaceships to attack the Earth. And so I'm just wondering how will the rest of this season play out? How precisely will the Avengers wind up defeating the Kree Empire? Because it from I mean on the face of it, it just doesn't seem like Earth can win in an all-out fight against the Kree. That just doesn't seem possible. And also, like I said before, the scroll are sort of ambiguous. They have an ambiguous role in this. And I'm just wondering what their intentions are, what their purposes are, and what their objectives are. So there can be some sort of clarification with respect to precisely what their narrative role in the rest of this season will be. And so yeah, I'm just very, very interested to see how this sort of storyline will be resolved, because for one thing, it doesn't look like the Earth can beat the Kree. um, it looks like they might be able to defeat the scroll depending on what kind of technology the scroll has, but it's not even clear that the Earth can defeat the scroll. And also, it doesn't look like Earth can evade being consumed by the conflict between the Kree and the scroll. And I know Kang in last season, I believe it was, I know Kang said that Captain America would be the reason why Earth would eventually be destroyed. But even if we don't look at, what role Captain America or Captain America's impersonator could play in this whole thing, it even if it looks like even if a scroll sort of spy hadn't impersonated Captain America, that even then Earth still wouldn't be able to defend itself against either the Skrull Empire or the Kree Empire. So yeah, I'm just very, very interested to see how this whole plot line will be resolved. But that's just my take on it. So this was your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga. Just brought you another video with no frills, just the analysis. Peace and have a blessed day.